Hey everybody, Dr. Lagrange here, and today we are going to be talking about the best nootropics that I currently use to really help with focus. So today I really just wanted to just dive into more of the main common problem that I do see with ADHD is usually focus issues. But even if you don't have ADHD, this is also something that might be on your mind. That's might be something a challenge with you. Why you've maybe been looking into nootropics by trying to help with your focus. So what I want to share with you is this is just currently right now what I see currently, and this does change from time to time, but I'm going to show you just case studies of a lot of tests that I do run with my patients and clients to really identify really what are the types of nootropics that I commonly recommend based off on average of what testing I do see. So this very first case study, um, you know, usually will present when I do see testing, when I do test for amino acids and neurotransmitters, is that they can't focus. There's a couple things here that are role, and this is very common where someone who can't focus and they're also not motivated is you can see that their tyrosine levels are low, their dopamine levels low, as well as DOPAC, which is a breakdown of dopamine. So this is very common presentation when someone can't focus and they're not motivated when we see these low. So what I would do is for certain nootropics to target these specifically is really looking at something that I do. I like this one. It's called Dopa Boost. And the reason being that I like this one, let me see if my pen is, oh, yes, it's charged back up. So it is Dopa Boost. And here's the reason why. So Dopa Boost, one is that it has N-acetyltyrosine, which is a really good way of absorbing tyrosine. So in this case, we want to help improve tyrosine levels because they are low. Also, mucuna prunes. So you could see here on the neurotransmitter pathway, here's dopamine. Then we have something called L-DOPA that helps build dopamine. So mucuna prunes helps build L-DOPA. It's also known as L-DOPA, basically. And so that's why I like Dopa Boost if I do see low dopamine levels, and then because of also helping improving tyrosine. The other thing I do like is green tea extract, which also can help improve dopamine, as well as vitamin B6, because if you could see here, P5P here and P5P here, P5P is the activated form of vitamin B6. So that's what is also in Dopa Boost. So it has quercetin, which is also used as a good driver. And also to really help with inflammatory as well, which I do see common with people with ADHD. So that for if you are someone that have hard time with focus and no motivation, you have the kind of the classic maybe ADHD symptoms in this case, Dopa Boost could be possibly something that could be helpful. But it's always good to investigate, and this is why we do testing first. So this other case study, in this situation, also can't focus and not motivated, but the dopamine and tyrosine levels are fine here. Okay. So you're like, okay, now what? So, but in this case, PA levels were low. So phenolphthaleamine were low. And so if you look at the presentation here, PA is the beginning of the full dopamine pathway. So what we want to do here is typically add phenylalanine. So something like D-L-phenylalanine. Now I get this question asked, do you do D-phenylalanine or you do L-phenylalanine? I do both. In fact, there's better absorption when you're doing a combo of both. So that's why I typically will do both. So in that case, we'll add that to improve those levels because that can present with focus issues. And it's definitely one that I've used personally that has helped my HD probably the most. Is one of my favorite for me personally, but for a lot of my patients and clients that I work with, because typically I do see PEA levels tend to be low and deficient. So it's definitely something I commonly do recommend currently as far as, as it stands. Now, the next one, another presentation that I see that people kind of disregard is when it comes to depressive symptoms. So if you are someone that has depressive symptoms and also can impact your focus, which is very common when you're feeling very depressed and not very motivated, you also can really impact your focus and concentration as well. So in this case, like with this case study of a patient of mine, the presentation dealt with some other things that were low. So norepinephrine, epinephrine, and serotonin. So serotonin is a very important, actually, neurotransmitter that helps with us to feel happy. So if they're low, not only can it impact you having depressive symptoms, it also can impact your focus significantly. Also, norepinephrine and epinephrine are very important types of neurotransmitters that deal with our stress levels. And when they're low, it could also present in symptoms of low focus. And so you can see epinephrine are breakdown from dopamine. You got serotonin here that is also needs to be to address. And so in this case, there's a couple things that usually I'll address here. One, usually 5-HTP could be a really good one because 5-HTP directly helps build serotonin. It's the next breakdown to helping building serotonin levels. The other one is L-tryptophan. So you can see tryptophan is here, especially if you are someone that's dealing with sleep issues that can impact your focus. L-tryptophan can be a really great one because that can help you stay asleep throughout the night, but also help with focus. So sometimes I'll supplement that one as well. L-theanine is a big one that I will use because of the low epinephrine and norepinephrine levels, but also can also help with serotonin because L-theanine has helped to improve those levels as well as if they're too elevated to bring them down. So it's a good natural way to balance those both out. So that's another nootropic that I love using. I use it a lot and do see that does help improve these levels and help with focus significantly. Now, another presentation could be where maybe you're someone that feels stress, anxiety, and agitated that can impact your focus. I see this all the time where people who are just really stressed out, and because they're so stressed out, they can't focus. So therefore, it could be something completely different than it being a dopamine problem or having something like ADHD. So in this case, you could see with this case study of a patient of mine, they had high elevated dopamine levels. So dopamine's not the problem. In fact, well, it still is because it's too elevated. So when you have too high levels of dopamine, you're going to feel more stressed. You're going to feel more agitated and irritated. And if you've been using a stimulant medication on top of that, maybe you felt more stress on your medication. And this might be the reason why, because your dopamine levels are too high. So what do you do in this case? So another thing is epinephrine levels were low, but also in this case as well, serotonin levels were elevated too. And elevated levels of serotonin can also make you feel agitated and stressed as well. So what I do with this situation, now remember what I said about L-theanine. L-theanine is great whether your levels are too high or they're too low. So I tend to recommend this one quite a bit because of this, because it can still help the elevated dopamine levels and the elevated serotonin levels. Now, another one that I'll incorporate, especially for elevated serotonin and also dopamine, is rhodiola. That's a really good one to bring those levels down. And then a B complex, typically when I see these elevated, because there could also be a conversion process issue. So remember back here where I mentioned there's that conversion of P5P, but also other B vitamins that help the process of actually building those other levels. So there might be an issue where typically dopamine is not being very well broken down to norepinephrine and epinephrine because there might be some low B vitamins going on here. Same with serotonin. It's not breaking down into the next steps because there might be some issues with some certain B vitamins that are deficient, and that's why they're also elevated. So typically I will also add B vitamins, but I usually will also test B vitamins, micronutrient test if I feel like I need to. And now the other one is with focus issues is if you're also having symptoms of exhaustion. So this is very common where you can not only be physically exhausted, but also mentally exhausted where you do not have focus throughout the day. This is very common amongst adults and especially adults with ADHD. So if you have those kind of symptoms where you feel really exhausted and you can't focus throughout the day, it could be more of a hormone situation. And this is where it's good to test to look at, okay, is it a hormone situation that we're dealing with here? So with this case study of a patient of mine, sure enough, their cortisol levels, which has all to do with energy. So you want cortisol levels to be nice and high first thing in the morning, and then kind of taper out throughout the day, just like how it shows in this green graph right here. That's where you want it. In this case, they're extremely low throughout most of the day. So what do we do in this case situation? Also want to mention that sometimes, looking at also micronutrients can really identify the issues as well as being exhausted that can impact your focus significantly. And so in this case, it was low vitamin D levels, but there could also be several other micronutrient tests, which I don't have time to do today. I'll maybe do a future live stream where I just maybe focus on just talking about exhaustion and focus issues, because this has whole things to go into, and especially a lot of different testing too that's involved. But for today, with this case study is looking at specifically implementing some kind of adrenal support and doing it first thing in the morning and afternoon. In this case situation. Now, if there's different variances and everyone can be different, sometimes they might be too spiked in the morning, but they're really low in the afternoon. So it just really depends. But in this case, I implemented first thing in the morning and afternoon. And then the thing about adrenal desiccation, you got to be careful here. You only want to do it to kind of just jolt your adrenals to be able to bring the adrenal functionality back up for the next like 2 to 3 months. And then you want your body to naturally be producing it, or at least using something like Drenamine, which I typically will to switch out so your body doesn't get adapted and used to taking something like adrenal desiccated consistently. And then, of course, taking vitamin D, typically when it's that low, I'll usually start out about 5,000, 10,000 IUs a day for usually about 2 to 3 months, and then go to a maintenance dose. But those are some of the big ones. Now, another one that I think that is also disregarded when it comes to focus issues is other symptoms that can present as such as mood swings. So mood swings can also really impact significantly our focus as well, because hormones can impact our focus. It can impact our energy, can impact so many different things. So in these two different cases here, one where the progesterone levels were too low, and that can impact your focus and your mood. And then another case of a client of mine where the DHE levels were low. So DHEA is what helps actually build estradiol and testosterone. So this is something to look at as a prevention, and it's really important. So in this case, I'll add something like a natural progesterone cream. You don't necessarily need to do like a synthetic hormone replacement therapy right away. You could do something more natural. And also, it's usually going to be better, especially when it comes to looking at things if you're doing long-term synthetic hormone replacement therapy. Looking at you want to make sure you got to be careful, especially if you're more prone to certain cancers. So the other thing is, of course, DHEA, in this case, supplementing that. And all of these, because it really takes looking at further investigation, and that's how you know which are the best types of nootropics that are going to be best for you. But I try to give you the best as far as looking at what are the ones that I currently recommend, because these are the testing that I do typically see, but everybody is different. And so if you are someone that really would like to find out about this for yourself, for your own focus issues, whether you have ADHD or not, if you are dealing with suffering with focus, exhaustion, anxiety, depression, whatever it is, and you're needing help to really achieve that optimal focus mind that you're seeking for, it does require further investigation. And so the best thing to do is to book a consultation with me, which I'm offering currently, that you can book a consultation with me where I can actually spend time looking at your medical history to really identify really what is the best kind of testing to do, because everyone has different medical history background. So once I've gotten a chance to look over your medical history, then I can really determine what kind of testing is going to be the best, as well as what kind of action plan to put together to help you achieve that optimal focus mind that you're seeking for. So, when I started on my journey, and if you're new here, like, I went through medical school and it was expensive. It's not cheap to go through medical school and also continue education. Spent well over $500,000 investing and trying to figure this out on my own, because frankly, when I was diagnosed with ADHD, the medications didn't work for me. So I had to figure this out on my own. And then I started going to medical school to figure this out. But even still, then I had to do continuing education to figure this stuff out, to be able to really help not only myself, but also others that suffer with ADHD and focus issues. So you don't have to do that, because I did the heavy lifting for you. And you certainly, I would really hate, because research has shown to us that people with ADHD on average actually in their lifetime will waste over $1 million because of missed opportunities, losing jobs, getting fired, not being productive and efficient, and because they don't address their focus issues and their ADHD and getting it treated correctly. So I certainly don't want to have that be in your case. And so what I'm offering is you can book a one-on-one consultation with me. It's a $750 value, as well as the assessment that I do have you fill out. That's $197 value. And if you do book today, you get access to my HD Health course. That's a $297 value. So over $4,000, you get that all for just $297. So all you got to do is just click on the link in the description below. And once you clicked on the link in the description below, it'll take you to this page. You will purchase. Once you have purchased, then you'll pick your date and time, and then you'll fill out your information, and then it'll take you to this landing page. Now, it's really important that you check your email, because there's one email to confirm your appointment that will have the Zoom link to join our appointment, the date and time that you chose, and then a second email to actually activate your online client portal through Practice Better. That is how you're going to fill out your information. That's how you're going to fill out the client questionnaire, as well as if you have any labs in the past year, that you can send to me that you've done through your doctors that I can look over before our appointment, that'd be great. And then make sure to block out 45 minutes to an hour. Sometimes we'll spend a full hour if you have additional questions. But yeah, so make sure, and then of course show up early. So if you are really wanting to tackle your focus issues, and especially if you have ADHD, then book that consultation. And so that way I can really determine what are going to be the best kind of testing to implement to really identify the root cause of your problems. But not only that, to also put an action plan for you so that you could finally have that optimal focus mind that you're seeking for. So thank you guys so much for attending, and I will see you guys in the next live stream. Thanks. Bye.